Welcome to Fantasy Smack Talk. I'm Dustin. Already 2 weeks in the books. Heading into week 3. Hopefully you're sitting pretty in your league. Before we get into it though, DraftKings, if you haven't signed up and played for these daily games yet, you really need to. They're a lot of fun. Sign up using the promo code FST or follow the link in the card or in the description. DraftKings will give you entry into a free game just to get your feet wet, learn how it works. It's a lot of fun. You need to get into these things. All of us here at Smack Talk are playing. I think Mike plays almost 100 games a week. It's pretty crazy, but we have a lot of fun with them. Get in there, help us out. They're a lot of fun. Deposit at least $5 or more also to get that free game. Let's talk about the people must-adds in all leagues. Let's start with running backs. First one, James Starks, only on 15% of leagues. Lacey banged up. Looks like he might miss a game. Doesn't look like he's going to miss more than one. So here's what I want to say about Lacey. I do think he's a must-add, or what I want to say about Starks. I do think he's a must-add in all leagues. Only for Lacey owners for the most part, unless you're really desperate at running back. One mistake I see a lot of owners make is just because Starks is a hot pickup, they'll use a really good waiver on him or use a lot of fab money on him, and he only has 1 or 2 weeks of value, and they don't even start him. So if you're going to use a good waiver number on Starks, make sure you either have Lacey or you plan on starting him this week because he might only get 1 start. Matt Jones is the next one. You know, we talked about him last week in terms of a guy that has a big upside, and he showed it week 2. Really stormed onto the scene. Alfred Morris owners should be scared. I mean, I think this is just going to turn into a nasty timeshare if both of them are healthy, but in terms of a guy that you can just pick up that has instant value, Matt Jones is that guy, only under 25% of leagues. We're in the DC area here, so in all the leagues that we're in here, he's owned because everyone's excited about him. But, you know, in leagues that aren't centered around the Redskins, he's probably available in a lot of them, 75% of them to be exact. But he's a guy that is a very good high upside running back. Devontae Freeman's next. I mean, the story with him, kind of the same deal with what I was saying with Starks. He's worth picking up right now because with Coleman out, you know, who knows, maybe 1 to 3 weeks. It's yet to be seen in terms of how long he'll miss with the rib injury. But unless you plan on starting Freeman, he's really not that great of a pickup because he only has short-term value. Once Coleman comes back, he's the clear better running back at this point. But Freeman could have decent short-term value. David Johnson's next. We talked about him last week in terms of, you know, he's the more exciting Johnson to own. But the Cardinals have proven that Chris Johnson is going to get the bulk of the work. But David Johnson is clearly the more exciting and better running back, in my opinion, only on 35% of leagues. I like him as an add as well. Got to talk about Dion Lewis. I mean, 2 weeks in a row. I mean, I have him in almost all of my leagues. I picked him up before the season started just as a flyer. But I just can't seem to stick him in my lineup. It's too scary to start him, but now he's had 2 good games. He's been a big part of the game plan. We'll see what they do against Jacksonville this week. You know, maybe they decide to put Blunt in there a little bit more. But Dion Lewis is clearly going to have a role in the Patriots offense, especially in the passing situation. So he's a guy that needs to be owned in all leagues, not just PPR leagues, because, I mean, he's been getting a lot more carries, or he got a lot more carries than Blunt as well. So as always, it's a mystery with the Patriots backfield, but Dion Lewis is a talented receiver and needs more attention. Let's take a look at some running backs to talk about in deeper leagues. I got 2 that are high upside guys that I want a lot of people to add to their bench. Carlos Williams is the first guy out there with Buffalo, only on 25% of leagues. Obviously, McCoy is the guy out there, but you know, the Bills, they're going to run the ball a lot this year, and Williams has shown some really good promise. I think he's going to have some goal line carries, and if McCoy goes down, again, this is just a high upside guy that you could have on your bench that could turn into a top 15 running back if McCoy goes down. Next is Andre Williams. Now, he didn't really look that good last year, but so far this year he's looked pretty good, and someone who hasn't looked good is Rashad Jennings, so that's one reason why I think Williams is an interesting add right now, because he could end up taking over that early down work even if there's not an injury to Jennings. I mean, Jennings just looks very sluggish. Green has the passing down situations pretty much locked up, but there's still some wiggle room, I feel, in the early down work. So Williams is definitely a guy that I would pay attention to. All you Rashad Jennings owners should be a little bit worried. Some receivers now. Rashad Matthews is the guy I want to talk about. I'm going to call him a must-add in all leagues. I've been a big fan of the Dolphins offense, and you know, we're trying to figure out who the wide receiver 2 is going to be out there. Is it going to be Stills? You know, there was some, you know, is it going to be Parker? But he wasn't quite ready. But Matthews has been there for a little while, and he's been playing great so far. And so far, it looks like he's the guy to own in terms of that second wide receiver out there in Miami. And Tannehill's going to throw for a lot of yards. And Landry's more of a possession guy. I mean, I think Landry will, go over 1,000 yards, but I don't think by much. So there's going to be a lot of yards to go around out there. And Matthews could end up being a sneaky guy to pick up. Next one, talk about Travis Benjamin. Amazing game with him. I mean, obviously he and Manziel are on the same page. They looked great. I don't think he's a must-add in all leagues. It's a little bit scary just with that Browns offense and just what's going to happen with the quarterback situation, but definitely must-add in deeper leagues. And if you want some upside on your bench with the receiver, I'm not going to hate on you if you're in a shallow 10-team league and you want to pick him up, but he is going to be a bit streaky from week to week. A few more guys in deeper leagues. Aiken, wide receiver for Baltimore. Here's a guy that's showing some promise. Steve Smith getting a little bit older. I'd be kind of surprised if Smith is able to stay healthy his entire season. This is his last year. So I think Aiken is certainly someone that has an upside moving forward. Marvin Jones I wanted to talk about, only on 20% of leagues. He's past Sanu. He's now the wide receiver 2, it looks like, for the Bengals. So that receiver has value, and Jones definitely has touchdown potential. I like him a little bit more in standard leagues and PPR. And then Corey Brown I want to talk about for Carolina. We've been trying to figure out who's going to fill in and take over the looks for Kelvin Benjamin. Funchess hasn't really worked out. They got Ted Ginn Jr. out there that I'm not all that excited about. But it might be Corey Brown. We haven't really heard much about this kid, but he's interesting. He's produced. He's worth considering. It's too early to say, but I do think he is worth adding in deeper leagues just because they don't have many other options. They're having a hard time getting Olsen involved. So Corey Brown is someone I think people should pay a little bit of attention to. The year of the tight end continues. Eric Ebron is breaking out now. I wanted to talk about him. I think he should be owned in deeper leagues, and I think he's definitely should be thrown into the same conversation as kind of that low-end tight end one at this point. So he's someone I want you to consider. Now let's talk about quarterbacks. With all the quarterback injuries, there's going to be some people out there looking for some quarterbacks. Sorry if you drafted Romo, but we tried to tell you. Bet you wish you had Ryan Tannehill right now. But let's start with quarterbacks with Johnny Manziel. I do want to talk about him. Pay close attention to what happens with who they announce as their starter, because Manziel has legitimate fantasy value. If they weren't playing with a lead the entire game week 2, he would have done a lot better. And when they're playing from behind, that's where Manziel's really going to get you those rushing yards and really stack you up on some fantasy points. So if he ends up winning the job, I think Manziel is definitely right there in the top 15 quarterback range in terms of fantasy, because he's going to do so much with his legs. Tyrod Taylor I wanted to talk about, only on a 15% of leagues. I completely wrote this guy off. Didn't give him any credit or no expectations from him. He's certainly proved me wrong. He's looked pretty good. A lot of his points were in junk yards or junk time week 2 as they're trying to play from behind and make it a game. But he has been impressive so far. And then Bortles. I wanted to talk about Bortles. Only on the 10% of leagues. This guy is good. He needs more attention. And if you have a quarterback that's banged up for a couple of weeks and you're looking for someone to plug and play, I like Bortles the next 2 weeks going up against New England and Green Bay. I like him because I think they're going to be playing from behind. Jacksonville should be used to that, but I think Bortles could definitely help you out in the next 2 weeks if you got a quarterback that's a little banged up right now. And then one pick up and play defense for you. I like the Giants this week. They got a short week, playing Thursday night at home against the Redskins. I know the Redskins won. They looked decent week 2, but on a short week at home, Giants D has a chance for putting up a few points. I don't love the Giants D, but I like the matchup. I like that they're at home. I like they're on a short week. So not a bad pick up and play. Now this is just a portion of the list. If you want to see the full list, you can follow the link in the description. It'll take you to the site and take you to the full list. If you got any questions, post them in the forums. And good luck week 3.